Good Monday morning. Thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We have the super producer. She's back.
I'm back.
Carlene Bragg, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. I feel a lot better. We both were sick last week.
We were down and out there.
Carlene had to take Friday off.
I
I'm not saying too much of you, but you had to.
Sure.
Okay. So you had to take Friday off. But it got better.
I'm here.
Carlene is better. I feel a lot better. I definitely feel better. Carolina Panthers won. We'll talk about that later. But I was about to sing "Sweet Caroline."
You had to bring it up. You had to bring it up.
I had to. Look.
It's you know.
Before we get to our interview, I just want to point out, I dealt with a lot last year.
Yeah.
A lot. People give me a hard time in the newsroom. Even at the beginning of this year, this season. Folks giving me a hard time. So I have reason to brag.
Sure.
Carlene brag.
Yeah, you do. You do. It's a victory.
It was a great win. It was a great win. It was a great win. I'm gonna ask our this interview that we have if he's a Panthers fan, see if he passed the test. But we want to get to it. We have a man who was sworn in at the top of the year as Secretary of North Carolina Department of Administration, is the first Latino cabinet leader in North Carolina history. Gabe Esparza, Secretary Gabe Esparza, thank you for joining us here off the top of the show. I got to ask you before, we were talking about Panthers. Are you a Panthers fan?
Good morning, Nick. Yes, go Panthers. That's great. Good to see them win their 3-0 at home this season.
Oh, we got to protect the bank.
That's right.
Protect the bank. You're here. We were talking about it before. Obviously, you're part of Governor Josh Stein's cabinet in Raleigh. I'm thinking you were in Raleigh, but you're here in Charlotte. What does that mean for you to be here, located in Charlotte?
Well, so let's be clear. I work in Raleigh.
And
I'm there most of the time. But I live in Charlotte, so my family, my kids, we're all here. And so I'm out Monday mornings normally, except for being here with you. Thank you for having me this morning. Either driving or on the train over to Raleigh, and I'm there Monday through Thursday, back in time for dinner on Thursday night with the family. And then Friday's my Charlotte day. And part of that, of course, is that as the governor and his team told me when they were looking for folks, that they want to embrace the fact that talent exists everywhere in North Carolina, not just in Raleigh. And so as they were thinking about staffing the team, they were excited the fact that I lived in Charlotte. Charlotte is the largest driver of GDP in the state and an important part of the state's mix. And so they said, we want to embrace the fact that you live here in Charlotte, and of course accommodate as much as possible my ability to make it back and forth. And so our Monday morning cabinet meetings are now Monday early afternoon cabinet meetings, so I can get in on time, and it's great to be a part of the team.
What does it mean to have those eyes and ears here in Charlotte? So much happens in Charlotte, but to have those eyes and ears, we're 2.5 hours away from Raleigh, so it is important for somebody to be down here, right?
That's right. So that means not only what's going on from an event standpoint and sort of issues and topics, but making sure that the relationships are healthy. And so I'm friendly with members of City Council and County Commission and the school board, but also business leaders and other leaders throughout the city and the county. And so it just gives me an opportunity to relay one more set of messages and interests to the governor as he thinks about policy and activities and so forth.
How would you describe your role within this cabinet? For if you had to describe it, and you had to, if somebody came up to you on the street and you introduced yourself, what would you say your role is?
So there are 11 cabinet secretaries in the administration, and I run the Department of Administration, which is, in its shortest description, the internal business operations manager of the state. So we empower the other cabinet agencies to be effective in all that they do. So we manage all of the state's assets. That's all property, land, and buildings. We build the new buildings. We manage the facilities. But we also manage the service operations for the state. So that's all the motor fleet, the vehicles of the state, all procurement, all internal governmental mail services, et cetera, et cetera. But uniquely for us, we also have an advocacy arm. So different than other states' departments of administration, or at the federal level, it's called the General Services Administration. We uniquely have an advocacy arm where we advocate for historically underserved parts of the state and constituents of the state. So, for example, we manage the relationship with the Native American tribes of the state. We manage grant programs for women and youth, so sexual assault and domestic violence prevention programs. We manage all non-public education, so private schools and homeschools. Okay. And the historically underutilized businesses office, where we certify and help promote women and minority small businesses. So all of that advocacy is just as important as the service operations and the asset management of the state.
You bring up minority. It is Hispanic Heritage Month.
Until October 15th. September 15th to October 15th.
We have a couple of more days.
That's right.
When you hear the words and you Google your name and it pops up a lot, and rightfully so, the first Latino cabinet leader in North Carolina history. What does that mean?
Well, it's of course an honor for me and my family, and I'm so thankful for the governor for having the confidence in me to appoint me to this role, leading the Department of Administration. But I know it's equally important for our community. And so Latinos everywhere have been so supportive of my efforts. And of course, this month has been quite active, as you can imagine, in celebrating and in talking about the issues and highlighting the history and the character of the culture and the contributions Latinos make to the state. So I know we'll get into it, but it's an important part of my story and my journey, and I believe it is my responsibility to be a champion, a leader, a pioneer for the community as I go about my job.
Talk about your story. Correct me if I'm wrong. I read great grandson of immigrants, came from Mexico, family originally from Mexico. To have that story and where you are now, have you taken the time to sort of reflect?
So I appreciate that. I am always reflecting. We just had my father's 80th birthday back in California.
Happy birthday, Dad.
Happy birthday, Dad. And in many ways, each of the generations that have been here in the United States, it was my great-grandparents, but my great-grandmother was pregnant with my grandfather coming across. So he's sort of that hybrid. Maybe he was there, maybe he was here. But they were farm workers in Southern California, picking oranges in the orange groves of Southern California. My dad tells a story. He picked oranges for 25 cents a crate back in the 50s and the 60s. And then he went on as somebody who was told by my grandfather that education equals freedom. The more education you have, the more freedom you have to choose what you want to do in your life as opposed to others dictating that to you. And so he ultimately went on to become the first Latino to graduate with a PhD in psychology from the University of Michigan in the early 70s, which is why I was born at the University of Michigan. And so he is of that pioneering generation as well, breaking through in his case, the academic ranks and the PhD ranks, and went on to have a very successful career as a psychologist. And that just laid the groundwork for me to continue in that tradition, but find my own way to be able to contribute and give back.
Do you ever think about what your grandparents would say now, great-grandparents? I often think about that. My grandparents passed away years ago, and I think about, man, what would they say? What would they think?
Yeah, I think sometimes they would simply not understand the types of activities, the types of responsibilities, the types of circles that I work in, but simply would be saying, are you happy and are you doing a good job and are you giving back and taking care of your family? And so they would be proud for that reason. They wouldn't necessarily understand, but that's part of the journey. You see your kids grow up and do things that you don't know. I don't understand half of the music that my kids listen to.
I understand that.
Or the mediums in which they communicate with one another. But nevertheless, I take great pride in the effort that they put forth and the work that they do. And so it's part of every generation's journey.
What is your message to that younger generation, to your kids? Father of two?
That's correct.
Father,
2 teenagers.
Two teens. Yeah, watch out. Your message to them, to a younger generation as well.
Find your passion.
Yeah.
Think about what you want to do. Don't just follow what the crowd is thinking about. Find what you like and what you want to do, and then pursue that with excellence. Be the best that you can be. Get ahead. Don't wait to be told what to do. Anticipate what to do. Get ahead. Make a difference. And then understand the value of relationships and the network to be able to find the pathways to do what you want to do. So it's both being excellent in what you do, take advantage of the system and the network, and go make it happen. Make a difference in the world.
Do your kids, are they impressed? Teenagers, are they impressed by what you do at all?
Well,
teenagers are hard to
impress. That's a fun set of stories because you'll know prior to this job, I was working in Washington as a part of the administration at the SBA. And so, of course, I had an opportunity to take my kids to the Capitol, to the White House. And so, now that I'm back at the state level, they're like, tell me when you're big time, when you have something national to tell me. No, but it's been great. They're all very supportive. And as you can imagine, between my schedule back and forth to Raleigh, my wife who travels quite frequently for work, often the kids are like, who's around to take care of me today? And so we're very lucky, again, as a part of the generational narrative, to have my in-laws here with us as well. So they're quite helpful in taking care of the kids as well.
Been in this role about 10 months, approaching a year. Where has 2025 gone?
Amazing.
What has been your biggest takeaway in these 10 months in this role? Some of the challenges as well.
Well, as you can imagine, having previously served at the federal level, the difference between federal government work and state government work is the federal government is often the source of dollars, right? The Congress is going to appropriate millions, if not billions of dollars for things to happen out in the country, out in the states. And it is the states who execute. Yeah. And so this is where the work actually gets done. And so it's, in a way, it's a different set of things to do, a different fulfillment, a different set of challenges, because we are executing. We are actually operating in state government and in tandem with local government to make things happen and to get the work of the people done. So it's not just about appropriating the dollars, it's about implementing and executing on the agenda that, in this case, Governor Stein has in conjunction with the legislature, with or without some money with the federal government. And as you know, right now, the federal government is shut down. So some of that money is on hold and frozen. But we're doing what we can to execute to the best of our abilities. And for us at the Department of Administration, that's internal to government just as much as it's external to government.
Can you talk to that as well? You mentioned the government shutdown. A lot of folks are wondering how it impacts them. From your role, how can you explain that? How does that impact your job, and how does that impact folks here in the state?
So across state government, there are programs and the associated people with those programs who are on hold because of the government shutdown. And so in the case of the Department of Administration, sadly, we had to furlough 22 people whose jobs and programs were funded directly as a pass-through to us to execute on those programs. Without the federal government money coming through, all of that is on pause. And so for us, some of that has to do with our work in the Native community, where we provide both for American Indians as well as other low-income folks, Section 8 housing vouchers, which is low-income housing subsidies. Some of that work has been paused. There's other programs that are simply on pause. And the people, unfortunately, who work in those programs, told to be furloughed. And so that's the reality of both people and programs. And ultimately, the North Carolinians who take advantage of those programs have to figure out other means with which to get that piece of their life done. And so it makes the headline news when it's like the government shut down and how are we negotiating coming back to the table and so forth. The reality is it impacts people's lives. And that is both North Carolinians who every day have to figure out how they are going about their business, but also the people who operate those programs, both at the state level and the federal level. So there is real challenges, real pain and suffering that happens, and it's not something to be glossed over on as just some kind of DC fight. No, it is real impact to real people.
Does it make it more complicated that we don't have a state budget on top of that?
So the difference is that when the federal government is unable to pass a budget, the government shuts down.
Yeah.
In the state level, many states are similar to North Carolina in this capacity, but what happens at North Carolina is if the legislature does not pass a budget, the prior year's budget maintains.
Okay.
And so the state government continues to operate, but of course that means that people who would otherwise expect their sort of annual raise or other programs that would naturally ramp up in their funding levels, that is all held flat to prior years. Nothing new has been introduced. And so our ability to evolve and grow and transform the work that we're doing in government is in effect all on hold. We still operate, but it's operating in sort of last year's realm.
Wow. Okay. That makes sense. I've gotten that question a couple of times, and I'm like,
yes, we're open, but we're stuck in last year.
Okay. Before I let you go, you've been so generous with your time. Again, Hispanic Heritage Month. Who did you look up to? Who were your heroes? Who were your influences?
Very easily, that's Cesar Chavez.
Yeah.
Cesar Chavez was a farm worker in California and realized very quickly that the rights of Hispanic, Mexican American, largely farm workers, were not up to the level of the same protections that other people, communities, workers got. And so he was the first to help organize what became the United Farm Workers. He worked hand in hand and got lots of attention, as you can imagine, from politicians, but ultimately he was a man of the people. And I distinctly remember, or at least I have pictures to help me remember, that my parents would participate in some of these walkouts, protests. In Spanish, they're called huelgas, where they would say, don't buy these grapes, don't buy this lettuce, don't buy whatever agricultural product they were talking about, because those particular farmers weren't respecting the rights of those workers. And so I have pictures of me as a 2-year-old, 3-year-old with little buttons that said, don't buy grapes, don't buy lettuce, what have you. So he was my inspiration. Now, today in North Carolina, we are 1 million Latinos, almost 11% of the state. And what was originally a wave of migration to work in the fields, do agriculture, then transformed in the 80s and 90s to be a wave of immigration that supported the growth and development through the construction industry. And today we are very spread out across all sectors, right? Retail, healthcare, in government, et cetera, to the tune of about $37 billion in impact, in GDP impact for the state. And yet we're really only 1 or 2 generations old, not just in North Carolina, but in the South generally. If you ask a room of Latinos, raise your hand if you're an immigrant, half of them will raise their hand. If you ask a group of Latinos, raise your hand if you were born here, but your parents were born in another country, the other half of the room raises their hand. We're really just about 2 generations old, and yet now 1 million people. So what does that mean? In many ways, Latinos are just acculturating, just getting used to, and again, this is 50 years, we're talking about 2 generations, but in many ways still just getting used to what it means to be full participants in society and economy and the opportunities that being embedded in the state mean. So that means, of course, trying to figure out just how to get along, how to get a job, how to send your kids to school, how to put a meal on the table. And over time, it means more and more civic participation. And yet, there are very few elected Latino officials. Charlotte's actually doing a great job. We have somebody on city council that was just elected, J.D. Masueras Arias.
Yep.
We have Commissioner Susan Rodriguez McDowell on the county commission, Liz Monterrey and the Charlotte Mecklenburg school system. Jordan Lopez is in the state delegation to the General Assembly. And while I'm not elected, as an appointed official, myself included, that Charlotte is actually quite ahead of the game when it comes to political representation from the Latino community. So we're doing well.
Do you feel like it's your duty to help advance that? Because like you said, it's more than just, hey, we need to survive, we need to have jobs, but we need to be in these elected or appointed positions.
I feel it is my duty to be excellent in everything that I do. So as an example of somebody who has, for the first time, been a member of a governor's cabinet, that means I need to do a great job at everything that I'm tasked to do. So being excellent in everything that I do is my first responsibility. Where I can uplift and shine a spotlight on the story and the journey of the Latino community, I do so.
Yeah.
And that can be sharing that with the governor directly, his policy advisors on issues that are relevant to the Latino community, or in my more public acts of being involved with and celebrating, highlighting issues, things that are relevant to the Latino community. I do so, and ultimately, where I can, being a connector, being somebody who can help identify talent and uplift talent. This is all part of the Latino journey, as it is a part of the North Carolina journey. I do my best to be involved with all of those things.
Secretary Gabe Esparza here in studio on Live Impact News. Thank you for your time. Thank you for stopping by. And now that I know you're in Charlotte, you have to come back.
We'll get together. We'll see how those Panthers are doing.
Oh, man, we have to check in. Hopefully we'll have another win. Secretary Gabe Esparza. If you missed that interview, we will have that available shortly. Our awesome digital team will put that on our digital platforms as in just moments. Carlene, do we want to head to break real quick? Let's head to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. So this morning, you probably saw it as you were waking up or as you were getting ready for work, but President Donald Trump spoke in front of the Israeli parliament as all living Israeli hostages were returned to Israel. There's celebrations happening right now in Israel after that hostage release. And so we heard from President Trump, his address in front of the parliament. Let's take a listen in to what President Trump had to say earlier this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. It's a great honor. Nice place. Very nice place. Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, esteemed members of the Knesset and cherished citizens of Israel, we gather on a day of profound joy, of soaring hope, of renewed faith, and above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. After 2 harrowing years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is glorious. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this sacred soil for all of time. And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity. This is not only the end of a war, this is the end of an age of terror and death and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. I want to express my gratitude to a man of exceptional courage and patriotism whose partnership did so much to make this momentous day possible. You know who I'm talking about. There's only one. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Bibi, please stand up. And he is not easy, I want to tell you. He's not the easiest guy to deal with. But that's what makes him great. That's what makes him great. Thank you very much, baby. Great job. And let me also convey my tremendous appreciation for all of the nations of the Arab and Muslim world that came together to press Hamas to set the hostages free and to send them home. We had a lot of help. We had a lot of help from a lot of people that you wouldn't suspect, and I want to thank them very much for that. It's an incredible triumph for Israel and the world to have all of these nations working together as partners in peace. And it's pretty unusual for you to see that, but it happened in this case. This was a very unusual point in time, a brilliant point in time. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. It's going to work together. I'd like to thank several great American patriots for their invaluable help in getting something done that almost everyone thought was absolutely impossible. We were wasting our time. So many people said, "You're just wasting your time." But we weren't, because we had talented people working with us, and we had people that loved your country, and frankly, people that loved the region. They loved the Middle East. I want to thank my friend Steve Witkoff. You know, Steve was chosen by me. He never did this before, but I knew him as a few things. He was a great businessman, but I know a lot of great businessmen, to be honest with you. He had tremendous negotiating skills, but I know a lot of people that negotiate pretty well, although it is an art. but there are people that can negotiate pretty well. But most importantly with Steve, he's just a great guy. Everybody loved him. Everybody. I mean, I know some negotiators that are so good, but you wouldn't have had peace in the Middle East. It would be in World War III right now with some of these guys. Everybody loves Steve, and they respect him, and they somehow can relate to him. I've known him for many years, and I've seen it over and over again.
חבר הכנסת עודה. להוציא את חבר הכנסת עודה. להוציא אותו מהאולם. להוציא אותו מיד. החוצה, החוצה.
Please expel this Knesset member. Please expel this Knesset member.
להוציא גם את חבר הכנסת כסיף. להוציא את חבר הכנסת כסיף מהאולם.
Expel Knesset member Kasif
להוציא
out
אותו
of the
מיד.
hall. Please expel him immediately.
Sorry for that, Mr. President.
I'm
That was very efficient. So back to Steve. He's But I tell one story because he was so involved, and then we called in Jared. We need that brain on occasion. We got to get Jared in here. We got to get a certain group of people. But Steve started this all by himself. I call him Henry Kissinger, who doesn't leak. Okay? Henry is a big leaker. He leaked. Steve doesn't leak. Steve just wants to get the job done. He wants to do what's right. But I'll give you just a quick story because, as you know, he's working on the war with Russia and Ukraine, a war that would have never happened if I were president. A shame. 7,000 young soldiers a week are being killed. More than that this last week. It's a shame. It should have never happened. But it did happen, and we won the race, and I took over this horrible war that's been raging, and I thought it would be easily settled. I thought it was a hell of a lot easier than doing what we just did very successfully with Israel and a lot of other people. But this came first, and we'll get that one. But I set up a meeting for him to meet with President Putin, thinking it would be a 15 or a 20-minute meeting. Steve had no idea about Russia, had no idea about Putin too much, didn't know too much about politics, wasn't that interested. He was really good at real estate, but he had that quality that I was looking for, and I didn't see it around in too many ways. And I set up the meeting with Putin, and I called. I said, is Steve finished yet? That was about a half an hour into the meeting. No, sir, he's not. He's still inside. This is in Moscow. I said, well, how's he doing? I don't know, sir. He's still inside. I called up an hour later. Let me speak to Steve. Sir, he's still with Putin. He's with President Putin. I said, wow, that's a long meeting, 1 hour. I called up an hour later, he was still with Putin. 3 hours later, he was still with Putin. 4 hours later, he started to get the word that he was going to be coming out soon. And in 5 hours, he came out. I said, what the hell were you talking about for 5 hours? And he says, just a lot of interesting things. We're talking about a lot of interesting things, including what he went in there for, but you can't talk about it for 5. You can talk about it for a certain period of time, and you know what you're getting. But that's a talent. That's a talent where you can do that. Most people I'd send in, number one, they wouldn't be accepted. Number two, if they were the meeting would last 5 minutes, and that's what happens with Steve. Everybody loves him. They love him on this side. They love him on the other side. And he really is. He's a great negotiator because he's a great guy. So thank you very much, Steve. Very much. And let me also give a very special thanks to someone who truly loves Israel. In fact, loves it so much that my daughter converted. My daughter converted. I didn't know this was going to happen. And Ivanka's here. And Bibi, you do know this was not in the cards for me. You understand that. And she is so happy, and they are so happy. At least I think they're happy. If they're not, we have a big story, right? No, they have a great marriage, and they get along great. They're best friends. They have a very special relationship. But Jared has been so helpful. He really did something very special. He established the Abraham Accords with a group of very wonderful people. I like calling it the Avraham Accords because people that, right? Avraham. It's so cool. It's so much sort of nicer, you know? The Abraham versus the Avraham. I just don't want to sound too sanctimonious when I do it, so, you know, I sort of split it up. This way we keep everybody happy. But we have some very great talent, and they have no excuses for anything that's taken place because we had some unbelievably good people working on this. And then you're going to add a man named Marco Rubio, who is also here. That's right. And I have a prediction that Marco will go down, I mean this, as the greatest Secretary of State in the history of the United States. I believe that. I believe it. And he and I, you know, we really fought it out. You remember, he was tough. He was nasty. Who the hell thought this was going to happen, Marco, right? And now I'm saying he's going to go down as the greatest. He will. He was always smart and sharp, and people respect him. And then we have somebody who's young, but an unbelievable leader. I saw it a long time ago, and he's turned out to be even better than we thought. Right, Susie? I think even better. And that's Pete Hegseth, who is our Secretary of War, formerly Secretary of Defense. And as you know, we decisively won World War I. We decisively won World War II decisively. And everything in between and everything before it, we won everything. And then they had the brilliant idea of changing the name from war, you know, it was war, to defense. And with that went a certain thinking. And we fought in a very politically correct way after that. We always had the strongest military, and now we have a stronger military than we've ever had before. Because of my first term, I've totally rebuilt the military, every aspect of it. But we have, if you think, we settled 8 wars in 8 months. I'm now including this one, by the way, if that's okay. They may say, well, that was quick, because yesterday I was saying 7, but now I can say 8. The hostages are back. The hostages are back. It is a good feeling. Isn't that nice to say? You know, I just said the hostage. First time I said the hostages are back. It feels so good to say it. But when you settle 8 wars in 8 months, that means you don't like war. Everyone thought I was going to be brutal. In fact, I remember Hillary Clinton during a debate, she said, look at him, he's going to go to war with everybody. And actually, she said, he's got a personality that's all about war. No, and my personality actually is all about stopping wars, and it seems to work. Seems to work. But it also means this name change and our attitude that we're not going to go into a war, but if we do, we're going to win that war like nobody has ever won a war before. We will not be politically correct, but we're not going to be there. And I think, you know, as you mentioned, Bibi, before, peace through strength, and that's what it's all about. The United States has the greatest and most powerful military in the, right now, history of the world. I can tell you we have weapons that nobody's ever dreamt of. I only hope we never have to use them. I rebuilt the military. I was proud to do it, but some of the things I hated to do. I hated certain of the weapons because the level of power is so enormous. It's so dangerous, so bad. But we have to do what we have to do. We make the best weapons in the world, and we've got a lot of them. And we've given a lot to Israel, frankly. And I mean, Bibi would call me so many times, can you get me this weapon, that weapon, that weapon? Some of them I never heard of, Bibi, and I made them. But we'd get them here, wouldn't we? And they are the best. They are the best. But you used them well. It also takes people that know how to use them. And you obviously used them very well. But so many that Israel became strong and powerful, which ultimately led to peace. That's what led to peace. So as we celebrate today, let us remember how this nightmare of depravity and death all began. 2 years ago, on the eve of the Simchat Torah holiday, thousands of innocent Israeli civilians were attacked by terrorists, and one of the most evil and heinous desecrations of innocent life the world has ever seen, the worst slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. The cruelty of October 7th struck to the core of humanity itself. Nobody could believe what they were witnessing. The United States of America grieved alongside you, and we mourned for our own citizens who were so viciously taken that day. And to all the families whose lives were forever changed by the atrocities of that day, and all of the people of Israel, please know that America joins you in those two everlasting vows: never forget and never again. From October 7th until this week, Israel has been a nation at war, enduring burdens that only a proud and faithful people could withstand. It was a very tough period of time. For so many families across this land, it has been years since you've known a single day of true peace. But now at last, not only for Israelis, but also for Palestinians and for many others, the long and painful nightmare is finally over. And as the dust settles, the smoke fades, the debris is removed, and the ashes cleaned from the air, the day that breaks on a region transformed and a beautiful and much brighter future appear suddenly within your reach. This is now a very exciting time for Israel and for the entire Middle East, because all across the Middle East, the forces of chaos, terror, and ruin that have plagued the region for decades now stand weakened, isolated, and totally defeated. A new coalition of proud and responsible nations is emerging, and because of us, the enemies of all civilization are in retreat. Thanks to the bravery and incredible skill of the Israeli Defense Forces and Operation Rising Lion, Guy's central casting. Let's put him in a movie. Look at him. Great job. And my people loved working with you. Loved it. They worked so well together. But many of Iran's top terrorists, including nuclear scientists and commanders, have been extinguished from this earth. And with Operation Midnight Hammer, boy, that's a great name for that, what we did. Last June, the United States military flew 7 of those beautiful B-2 bombers. They look so beautiful all of a sudden. They were always, I thought they were pretty planes. I had no idea they could do what they did. In fact, we just ordered 28 more of them. A little updated version. We ordered a whole pile of them. And almost 100 other planes went with them, including fighter jets. And we had 52 tankers, big, beautiful, brand new tankers that were loading them up 4 or 5 times. They've traveled 37 hours back and forth, think of that. But we had tankers all over the sky for all the other planes. We had the F-22s, the F-35s, F-16s. We had a hell of a lot of planes. So we had 52 gas stations in the sky. That's what they call them. I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to be flying one of them. We have our great General Raisin Cain right here. General, stand up. This guy, what a general. Thank you. I asked General Cain, I said, you know, we're having problems with ISIS, and I was in Washington, and I asked, how long would it take to defeat ISIS? And my Washington generals told me, 3, 4, maybe 5 years, sir. I said, I don't get it. We got the best equipment in the world. Why? So I flew to Iraq, and I met with a man named Cain. He said, what's your first name? He said, they call me Raisin, sir. I said, wait a minute, your name is Raisin Cain? I've been looking for you for a long time. You gotta be kidding. So they told me 3, 4, 5 years to defeat ISIS. And I sit down with him and I say, why is it? I flew there in the dark of night. I landed, I'll never forget it. It was quite a trip. I'm glad I made it because I met him. I said, could I ask you, General? I come down. He said, with another general and a sergeant. Everybody was like central casting. They could go into a movie right now. Between him and you guys over here, we could get rich making movies, okay? And they got along so great. That's the beautiful thing, that your military and our military, Bibi, got along so great. But I was told by the television generals in Washington, we have the best equipment in the world. Why is it taking so long? And they said, 4 years. I said, so let me ask you, Raisin, how long would it take you to defeat ISIS? Sir, we can do it in 3 weeks, but you'll probably have some time left over. I said, you gotta be kidding. What the hell are you talking about? They said 4 years. I said, well, sir, look, it's not my place to say, but you're asking me the question. What you have to do is you hit them from the west, you hit them from the north, you hit them from the south, you hit them above, you hit them below. I said, so why didn't they do it? And he didn't want to speak badly of his superiors, which is hard to believe they were his superiors. Should have been the other way around a long time ago, because he's the one that did Operation Hammer. It was flawless. It was flawless. It was absolutely flawless. And I said, so you really think you can do it in 4 weeks? Yes, sir, 100%. You have to do it differently than they were doing it. They were using one base, and it was hundreds of miles away. And he says, we have all these portable bases all over the Middle East. And they didn't want to use them because they didn't want to offend the country where the portable, they wouldn't have even known what the hell the planes were going up, right? They wouldn't have known, but he said, no, they didn't want to defend anybody, offend anybody, and but we can do it in 4 weeks. I said, you sure about that? I'm going to call you back. I'll call you back on Monday. I'm going back to Washington. But you think 4 weeks? Yes, sir, I think we can do it in 4 weeks. We'll have time left over. So I call him on Monday. I said, you think you can do it? 4 weeks. I said, go ahead and do it. He did it. I'll tell you, he did it in 4 weeks, less than 4 weeks. So, General, stand up, please. Again, this is a real general. This is not a television general. He doesn't want to go on television. He doesn't want to go on television. I said the other guys love being on television. So we dropped 14 bombs on Iran's key nuclear facilities, totally, as I said originally, obliterating them. And that's been confirmed, and everybody understands it. Together we stopped the #1 state sponsor of terror from obtaining the world's most dangerous weapons. And if you think about it, if we didn't do that, and assuming we made the same deal that we have today, there'd be a dark cloud over this deal. And #1, it wouldn't happen because the other Arab and Muslim nations really wouldn't feel comfortable making the deal that we have now, right? If Iran had that nuclear weapon that they were about 2 months away from having. They would have had it in 2 months or maybe less than that. They were right at, this was our last shot. They looked at it for 22 years. This was our last shot. The pilots told me that. They said, 22 years, sir, they looked at it. Our predecessors looked, they studied it. 3 times a year would do drills on that exact attack. And boy, did they get it right. But let's assume they didn't, and let's assume there was large-scale nuclear weapons in the hands of Iran. We couldn't be here today. Even if we signed the deal, which we couldn't do because a lot of people would not want to have anything to do with it. We took a big cloud off of the Middle East and off of Israel. And it was my honor to help. But isn't it true, though, that can you imagine the same, let's assume, Bibi, the same documents, we had everything the same, but you had somebody out there that was, in the opinion of everybody, all-powerful in the Middle East.
All right, right there is President Trump addressing the Israeli parliament earlier this morning. We want to get out to some breaking news happening there in South Charlotte. This is a live look at a section of Carmel Road, which is closed after a vehicle struck a utility pole, leaving more than 1,600 customers without power. You see crews there on the scene, police also there blocking off that section of road. Now, CMPD, again, closing Carmel Road between Glen Forest Drive and Carmel Hills Drive due to live power lines across a vehicle. So a Duke Energy spokesperson confirmed the outage is affecting more than 1,600 customers in that area. Crews are working to replace the damaged pole and the power lines. The utility company estimates power to be restored by 1 o'clock, so within that lunch hour time. So please, if you're in this area, please just avoid this area and find an alternate route until that section of road reopens. But I just want to reiterate again, a section of Carmel Road, what you're looking at right now, live look at the scene, is closed after a vehicle struck a utility pole, leaving more than 1,600 customers without power. So again, that is a section between Glen Forest Drive and Carmel Hills Drive, and there are live power lines across a vehicle. So again, that road is closed. Power expected to be back around 1 o'clock, by 1 o'clock. That's according to a Duke Energy spokesperson. All right, so that is happening, and we will continue to keep an eye on this, but we want to head a break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Carlene Bragg is here also in studio with me. It is the top of the hour, 10 o'clock. Again, thank you for hanging with us this morning on Live Impact News. So the big story this morning, President Trump addressing the Israeli parliament. Right now, President Trump is leaving Israel for a summit in Egypt after a lengthy we'll get back to that. Again, he's headed to Egypt for an address there after addressing the Israeli parliament. All 20 of the surviving hostages in Gaza have now been released. But we want to get now and pivot to this. Happening live, House Speaker Mike Johnson is speaking. We are now in day 13 of the government shutdown, and maybe off day 13 of the government shutdown. House Speaker Mike Johnson is speaking. Let's take a listen in.
Thanks to President Trump, today marks the historic dawn of a new Middle East, as well as the return of the official celebration of Columbus Day, which marked the dawn of a new era for all the world when Christopher Columbus, of course, arrived in the Americas, and as President Trump summarized, quote, paved the way for the ultimate triumph of Western civilization less than 3 centuries later on July 4th of 1776. For good reason, today is observed as a national holiday in many countries of the Americas and elsewhere, and of course, it's a federal holiday here. With regard to the history that's been made today, I just wanted to say that what we mark today, and the reason there was such rousing applause at the Knesset, and is being celebrated, as you know, throughout the Middle East, the region, and around the world, is because this is, for the first time in 738 days, there are no living Israeli hostages buried in the tunnels and being held at the hands of Hamas. In just 8.5 months in office, President Trump and his administration have ensured the safe release and the return of all 20 living Israeli hostages from Hamas captivity, putting a lasting peace within reach for a region where we have all aspired to that for generations. This is a day of profound hope and joy for the entire free world, and a day only possible under the leadership and strength and fortitude of President Donald J. Trump. And everyone recognizes that, and they're all talking about it around the world. With this historic achievement, President Trump has accomplished what others have only talked about or even tried and failed. Time and again, President Trump is demonstrating that America's strength delivers and ensures peace for freedom-loving people around the world. As we've said so many times, it's the perception of a strong America that really holds the terrorists and tyrants at bay. And America's back. We're so grateful for that. So as everyone here and around the world are celebrating all this incredibly good news, yet again we have a split screen. And on the other side, there's currently ongoing bad news here because of the costly political games that are being played by Democrats here in Congress. We're now on day 13 of the Democrats' Schumer shutdown. This marks the third week that Democrats have blocked paychecks to our troops. They've blocked pay for 2.2 million federal workers, and they held critical services that the American people rely upon in limbo. At least they've tried to block those checks. We are so very grateful that President Trump, again showing strong leadership, has stepped up to ensure that our troops are going to be paid on October 15th, while we wait for Democrats to stop holding the country hostage. Truly, truly grateful for a hands-on commander-in-chief. I spoke with the President at length before he left on this trip to the Middle East, and he and I are both so frustrated. The Democrats are perfectly happy to do all this damage while they play political stunts. We can hardly believe that they're willing to go along with this, on the gambit and the false narrative that they've created. And as you all know, here in Congress, Republicans have voted over and over to reopen the government and end all this pain. We passed a clean, nonpartisan CR that would pay the troops and the TSA agents and Border Patrol and the rest of our federal workforce. We did our job. We had that vote over 3 weeks ago now, and the bill is still sitting in the Senate, where Democrats have now voted 7 times to keep the government closed. I brought our handy chart again today because they were out breathlessly over the weekend, and media outlets, Democrats in Congress, including Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, claiming facts that are simply untrue. They claim that this didn't happen, but this is exactly what the vote tally is. And on September 19th, the House passed the clean resolution that got everyone paid and kept the services flowing, and they voted against it. Every Democrat but one in the House voted not to pay the troops, not to pay TSA, Border Patrol, air traffic controllers, and all the rest. The Senate Democrats then voted that down, and you see now 8 times total in Congress, Republicans have voted to keep the government open, and Democrats have voted to close it, period, end of sentence. And why did they do this? Because they want to spend $1.5 trillion in new taxpayer-funded spending as a ransom for ending the shutdown. Not our talking points, this is in the record, and they filed it. No matter how they twist it, this is a clean, nonpartisan CR. It does not include new spending. It does not include partisan strings attached at all. And this is something, as we have pointed out over and over, that Democrats have supported repeatedly. In fact, 13 different times during the Biden administration. Even the liberal New York Times admits the obvious truth here. You have leaders on the Democrat side like Jay Johnson, who spoke out this week and said, end it, open the government, and then have these negotiations. We were always planning to do that, to negotiate on the other issues. Again, we have to be very clear, the shutdown did not have to happen, but every American needs to understand why it did. And I will reiterate, I'll summarize for you very briefly again. What happened? It happened because while Republicans are working to ensure the American people are taken care of, Democrats are playing a political game. Unlike 2013, the Democrat Party is utterly rudderless. There have been times in the past where there were shutdowns. Democrats today have no leader, no vision, no direction. The party's at their lowest point in decades in terms of public opinion polls, and so they threw this Hail Mary pass. Chuck Schumer knows this. He reads the polls religiously. He knows his party is furious with him for doing the right thing back in March when he helped to pass a clean CR and avert a government shutdown. It was the right thing to do. He said so himself emphatically on the Senate floor. And that bill he supported is nearly identical to what we're offering today. The only thing that's changed is his personal political calculation. His consultants and his pollsters have told him he needs to show a fight to President Trump, even if it means hurting millions of American families. So that is exactly what Chuck Schumer is doing. He's determined that his own political survival is worth the irreversible harm he's inflicting on the American people. He's gambling with people's lives and livelihoods to appease the far-left Marxist base of his party so that he can keep his job. And make no mistake, this is bigger than Chuck Schumer. Democrats are terrified of their radical Marxist base. The ones who have been here for a while, kind of your father, your grandfather's Democrat Party, the remnant of those folks who are still here in the halls, they're terrified to show any willingness to work with Republicans or to work with President Trump, even when that would clearly benefit the American people. And everybody sees right through this. Meanwhile, Republicans are governing with common sense. In just the first 9 months of unified Republican leadership, we've cut taxes for hardworking American families. We ended the border crisis. We're ending the crime crisis. We're rooting out fraud, waste, and abuse in government, and now bringing an end to conflicts around the globe. And what have Democrats done? Nothing but distract. Now, I'll end on one very important note. Ending this shutdown is not a one-party exercise. Republicans do have control of Congress, quote unquote, but it still takes 60 votes to pass a funding bill in the Senate. All of this is the way the founders intended the process to work. Any Democrats who suggest otherwise are willfully misleading the American people. Chuck Schumer gave a speech on the Senate floor, I think it was on Friday, looks right into the cameras and said Republicans are in control and this is all on them. He knows full well that it takes 60 votes and we only have 53 Republicans in the Senate. There's already a bipartisan majority in the Senate that supports our clean CR. There are two Democrats and one independent who caucuses with Democrats, 3 Democrat votes total who have gone along with Republicans and using common sense to keep the government open. We need 5 Senate Democrats now to break ranks and do the right thing. The only ransom here is the $1.5 trillion that Chuck Schumer is demanding from the American people. And you've all heard our Democrat colleagues demand that Republicans come to the table to negotiate. But as I've said time and time again,
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. It looks like that shot is frozen. We'll work to get that back up. But again, we're in day 13 of the government shutdown. I just want to read you a tidbit that I came across, just sort of give you an update and some context on what's happening. So lawmakers are bracing for another Senate vote attempting to end the government shutdown as the impact of funding drying up continues to ripple across the country. Nearly 2 weeks into the standoff. So this looks like we got the shot back up. But just to kind of give you some context, we're expecting another Senate vote. Let's send you back now to House Speaker Mike Johnson.
The 4 leaders to get in a back room and make a deal. We're not doing that. We're not doing that anymore. We're getting back to regular order, and it's infuriating that that's what he continues to demand. Before Democrats recklessly shut down the government, Republicans and Democrats were engaged in responsible, open, bipartisan negotiations on the appropriations process. Republicans are eager to return to the actual negotiating table, to finish out full-year appropriations and do work on all the other matters before us, but we won't negotiate in smoke-filled back rooms, and we won't negotiate as hostages. Democrats in the Senate have been around a long time, and they'll remember this important plea, and I'll leave you with this thought. Listen closely to what I say here. Quote, "There's only one way out of this reckless and damaging shutdown. Pass a budget that funds our government with no partisan strings attached. The American people don't get to demand ransom in exchange for doing their job. Neither does Congress. They don't get to hold our democracy or our economy hostage over a settled law. That's not how our democracy is supposed to work. That's why I won't pay a ransom in exchange for reopening the government. I'll always work with anyone of either party on ways to grow this economy, create new jobs, and get our fiscal house in order for the long haul, but not under the shadow of these threats," unquote. What I just read was a direct quote. Those are not my words. They belong to President Barack Obama. He was speaking there in 2013 when our government was shut down for 16 days. This would be the third longest government shutdown in American history. That one would be. And my friends, if Democrats keep up their obstruction here today, this is where we're going to be headed. We're barreling toward one of the longest shutdowns in American history unless Democrats drop their partisan demands and pass a clean, no-strings-attached budget to reopen the government and pay our federal workers. I want every American to hear this clearly. What Barack Obama demanded then is exactly what Republicans are saying now. We will not allow the American people to be taken hostage over partisan demands. Democrats cheered on Barack Obama back then, and now they've flipped their entire position out of pure politics. It's now time for them to take their favorite president's advice, do what he said was right, pass the clean, no-strings-attached bill, and reopen the government. We're on duty here, and we can return quickly to legislative session as soon as you turn the lights back on, Chuck Schumer, and end this unnecessary hardship for the American people. Before I take your questions, I just want to give one word of thanks to the Capitol workers who are here today helping out even as they work without pay. There's a lot of dedicated folks who keep these engines running even when the Democrats are trying to turn them off. It means so much to us, and I want to thank you for your service to the institution, and I'll take a few questions. Yes, sir.
Speaker, thank you. Speaking of President Obama, you have been very critical in recent days of Obamacare, and some of your members have called for repealing it. Do you support repealing Obamacare, and what's your health care plan?
We worked on repealing and replacing Obamacare back in 2017. I still have PTSD from the experience. You remember that John McCain famously did the thumbs down, and effectively by a one-vote margin, the whole effort was defeated. It's a great frustration of mine, and has always been of President Trump's. And we know that American health care needs dramatic reform. Let's just state it simply. Obamacare failed the American people. It was promised to be a great success, to make health care more affordable. It's done exactly the opposite. And it has been pointed out by everyone that since Obamacare was created in 2010, premiums, the cost of health care, have risen exponentially. It's skyrocketed to the point where it's no longer affordable for so many Americans. And the access to care has been reduced, and the quality of care in some regions of the country has been reduced. We have to reverse all of that, and we have plans to do it. The Republican Party is the party that has the plans to fix it. Can we completely repeal and replace Obamacare? Many of us are skeptical about that now because the roots are so deep. It was really sinister the way, in my view, the way it was created. I believe Obamacare was created to implode upon itself, to collapse upon itself. I think the people who drafted that, the architects of it, knew that it would not be sustainable because their objective was ultimately a single-payer system. They wanted full government control of health care. That's a terrifying prospect for those of us who believe in low-cost, high-quality care. And so we have lots of ideas on how to fix it, but it is very, very complicated. It involves a big percentage of the U.S. economy. Healthcare is entwined with somewhere, I think it's 15% of the U.S. economy is the healthcare system. And you can't just rip it out at the roots and start over. It's a very, very complicated series of measures and steps that you have to take to fix it. Now, it takes a long time to build consensus in a legislative body to do those kinds of things. And we have lots of plans on the table. We have whole caucuses who work on this around the clock all the time. When I was the chair of the Republican Study Committee, which is the largest caucus of conservatives in Congress, back in the 117th Congress, we drafted a book this thick. We worked on it for almost a year, and we had a prescription for how to lower cost of care, make the quality higher, and make accessibility greater. And so we have formulated all these ideas, but we've got to build a consensus to do that, and we were in the process of that. This year alone, Republicans demonstrated this, not talking points. We did it. We put the Medicare reforms in the One Big Beautiful Bill, many of them. And what that did, don't take our word for it, look at the analysis of the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, that came out August 25th. And they said it will have the desired effect of reducing waste and abuse in that program that was full of it, full of waste and abuse in Medicaid, which was draining resources from people who needed it the most, which is the elderly, disabled, and young pregnant women example. Y'all have heard me explain this over and over. But we took all these millions of ineligible recipients off of Medicaid. That's going to be the effect of the one big beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, and it's going to reduce the cost. It'll save $185 billion is the estimate of the CBO, just for those initial reforms. So it's a long answer to a simple question. We have to fix healthcare in America, and we have ideas to do it. But we have to have government open and operating to do that. I cannot snap my fingers and go in a back room with Chuck Schumer and say, oh, here's the magic fix for it. It's not how it's going to work. The COVID-era Obamacare subsidy that they're all talking about is supposedly the issue of the day. It doesn't expire until the end of December. And by the way, it is the Democrats who created that subsidy who put the expiration date on it. They did it all on their own. Republicans weren't involved in that at all. They put an end date on it because they knew that it was supposed to be related to COVID, and it's become a boondoggle. It's a subsidy for insurance companies. When you subsidize the healthcare system and you pay insurance companies more, the prices are increased. That's been the problem. So if indeed the subsidy is going to be continued, it needs real reform. But there's a lot of ideas on the table to do that. Probably 100 different ideas on how to fix it, but we can't do that overnight. That requires the month of October and probably part of November to get the consensus built around that. So it is impossible. It is impossible and it is inappropriate for Democrats to demand, they know what they're saying isn't true, to demand that should be part of the negotiation today for a simple continuing resolution. And all of you know that. You're here in the building. You know how this works. You know how complicated this is. That is not a deliverable, and they know it. They chose that issue because they thought it would sell well in the public and it would show that they're fighting Trump. It's all a big facade. I'm so frustrated by it. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know the president moved forward with mass layoffs. So we are also learning there were significant cuts to staff at the special education services. Are you comfortable with those cuts?
I haven't seen the specifics of that, and I don't know. I do know that each of the cabinet secretaries were asked to assist OMB to determine what the most essential programs are and what the priorities are for the policies and all of that. And I've been so busy on all this, I've not had a chance to dig into the details of each division and how it's happened. I know that HHS, for example, has cut some programs, but they were effectively all agencies in a triage situation. Because remember, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats turned off the funding for all these things that everybody cares about. And so the executive branch, the Office of Management and Budget, has to determine what are the most efficient and effective programs. It's a difficult task. It's not one that they relish. They don't want to do it. Listen to the president's own words and Russ Vought's own words and everybody who's involved. They want the government to be opened. They're begging Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. That's how to make all this stop. They want this to end immediately, and they wanted it to end before it started. And so again, Republicans are voting and advocating for an open government, and Democrats are doing the opposite. They are the ones keeping the government closed and bringing an end to these services and personnel and policies. That's just a simple fact. Yes, ma'am.
Last question. At the end of this week, it will have been a month since the House has been out. Why are you keeping the House out if you have a lot of other work to do? Are you saying that you can't work on appropriations and other things while the government is shut down? And what do you say to Republicans in your own conference who are critical of the strategy of keeping the House out?
I've heard a criticism from, I think, 3 members on our conference call, and since our conference calls leak and they're always spun, that's the fact. You can poll individual House Republicans, maybe you should, and 98.7% of them will tell you that this is the right thing. Why? It's what you just said is the opposite of what I've said. We are working on appropriations. That work has been done in earnest. The next package of bills is being prepared. Appropriators are talking not just Republicans and Democrats, but across the aisle on that. And we can move all that forward. Right now, the House Republicans, I don't know what the Democrats are doing, but the House Republicans have been very busy. They're doing some of their best work in the district, helping their constituents navigate this crisis that's been created by Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. The Schumer shutdown causes real pain for real people, veterans, the elderly, people who rely upon these services, our rural hospitals that have been struggling. Our members are out helping them to access the rural hospital fund that we created and that the president signed into law on July 4th that no Democrats assisted on. Chuck Schumer wants to take those funds away. They're trying to make sure that the rural hospitals can access them because they know that this effort is underway. And so our members are doing very productive work. We're in constant communication with them, and we are ready to come back and continue the work in our committees and everything on the House floor. We will return to legislative session as soon as the Democrats come to their senses and open the government. That is a necessity so that the work can continue and the members of Congress can do their jobs, and that's what we will do. That's our commitment. It always has been. This has to stop. We're on day 13. This should end tomorrow. The Democrats in the Senate's next opportunity to end this, to change this and vote yes and reopen the government will be tomorrow. And I pray that they will do the right thing. And then we'll all get together and have our partisan disputes and discussions on all the issues that remain on the table for the end of the year. We're doing our work behind the scenes. We're preparing for that moment, and we can't wait for it to happen. So the question is for the Democrats. When will Congress get going again? And I hope they answer it affirmatively. Thanks so much.
All right, so that was House Speaker Mike Johnson doing what he's been doing for the last 2 weeks almost, speaking about the government shutdown from the Republican side of things. Both sides pointing a finger at each other as we are in day 13 of the government shutdown. So yeah, we will continue to monitor the impacts and hear from both sides of the aisle when it comes to this shutdown. All right, so we are going to take a quick break. We'll be back here on 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Carlene is also here in studio with me. So the big story this morning, and we heard from President Trump this morning, Hamas released all 20 of the living hostages today. That's according to the Israeli military. Now, it's part of a breakthrough ceasefire after 2 years of war between Israel and Hamas in the devastated Gaza Strip. So again, as I mentioned earlier, we heard from President Donald Trump. And he spoke in front of the Israeli parliament. So in case you missed it, we want to go back to that now. Let's take a listen into what President Trump had to say. And I just want to note, President Trump has just arrived in Egypt for a summit on the future of Gaza. So as soon as we hear from President Trump a little later, we will bring that to you. But for now, let's play back what President Trump had to say. Do we want to go to that shot?
We can show the shot.
Yeah, okay, let's show the shot real quick. So again, Air Force One just landed there in Egypt. as again they continue to work through the ceasefire deal, continue to work through, I guess, the future for Gaza. Not even I guess, but the future of Gaza. It's called the Summit for Peace. This is what it's been named. So we are expected to hear from President Trump a little later. He's arriving now. It looks like some world leaders are there to greet him. Yep. So as that unfolds and takes place, and I'm sure we'll have this shot at the bottom of the screen, but we want to play back what President Trump had to say in front of the Israeli parliament this morning. Let's take a listen in.
They got it from one side, from the other. And you know, it would be great if we could make a peace deal with them. And I think that's me. Would you be happy with that? Wouldn't it be nice, I think? Because I think they want to. I think they're tired. Somebody said, sir, they're starting their nuclear program again. I said, let me tell you something. They're not starting anything. They want to survive. The last thing they want to do is start digging holes again in mountains that just got blown up and start. They're not doing this. They want to survive, okay? But I think we have a chance. Steve, you, and I think Jared, come on, I'll call you back for another one. We always bring Jared when we want to get that deal closed. We bring Jared, but Steve, you and Jared and the General and Pete and Marco, you'll get that deal done easy. I think that'll be easy. But first we have to get Russia done. We got to get that one done. If you don't mind, Steve, let's focus on Russia first, all right? We'll get it done. In Lebanon, the dagger of Hezbollah, long aimed at Israel's throat, has been totally shattered. My administration is actively supporting the new president of Lebanon in his mission to permanently disarm Hezbollah's terror brigades. He's doing very well. And build a thriving state at peace with its neighbors, and you're very much in favor of that, I know, and it's good things are happening there, really good things. And with this week's ceasefire, we've achieved the most challenging breakthrough of them all, the most challenging breakthrough maybe ever. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I've been involved in a lot of success. I have never seen anything like what's going on today all over the world. People are dancing in the streets, not just in Israel. They're dancing in the streets of countries that would have never danced in the street about what's happening today. They're dancing in those streets. So this long and difficult war has now ended. You know, some people say 3,000 years, some people say 500 years, whatever it is. It's the granddaddy of them all. And in an unprecedented achievement, virtually the entire region has endorsed the plan that Gaza will be immediately demilitarized, that Hamas will be disarmed, and Israel's security will no longer be threatened in any way, shape, or form. So Israel, with our help, has won all that they can by force of arms. You've won. I mean, you've won. Now it's time to translate these victories against terrorists on the battlefield into the ultimate prize of peace and prosperity for the entire Middle East. It's about time to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Mr. Opposition Leader. I said he's a very nice opposition leader. I think, no, he's a nice man. Bibi, he's a nice man. Good. He knows what he's doing, right? No, a very nice guy. Well, see, now you can be a little bit nicer, Bibi, because you're not at war anymore, Bibi. But only by embracing the opportunities of this moment can we achieve our goal of ensuring that the horrors of recent years will never happen again. You don't want to have to go through this again. 8 years ago, I came to this region on a very special first trip abroad as the President of the United States. I came here very early at your request. I addressed the leaders of the Arab and Muslim world gathered in Saudi Arabia and said that it was time to build a future free of the grip of extremism and terror. And interestingly, right now, as soon as I'm finished, I'm quite late. You've kept me quite late between opposition leaders and Bibi's brilliant but very long speech. I thought I was going to run up here, make a speech, and then head to Egypt. It didn't work out, though. And you made a pretty long one, too, Sarah. But I liked what you all said. It could be worse. Supposing on top of it, I didn't like what you said. That would be no good, Ron, would it? Ron, you did a great job, by the way, Ron. Yeah. So I'm going to be meeting, actually, in a little while, I'm going to be meeting with the most powerful, the richest nations, really, in the world, although now, with the tariffs, the United States is by far the richest nation in the world, as you probably have been reading. But the richest nations, most powerful nations, tremendous, headed by some tremendous people in many cases. Some cases I wouldn't say necessarily I would endorse. But I will tell you, some incredible people that really helped us make this all possible. So I'll be going there. I'll be quite late. They might not be there by the time I get there. But we're going to give it a shot. But the journey we started back then led to the crushing defeat of the ISIS caliphate, to the monumental Abraham Accords, and ultimately to the historic ceasefire this week, in which many of those same nations really played a very pivotal role, I have to tell you. Steve will tell you that. Jared will tell you that. Together we've shown that peace is not just a hope that we can dream about. It's a reality we can build upon day by day, person by person, and nation by nation. And because of that, the Middle East is finally ready to embrace its extraordinary potential. You have extraordinary potential in this region. It should now be clear to everyone throughout the region that decades of fomenting terrorism and extremism, jihadism and anti-Semitism have not worked. They haven't worked. They've been a disaster. They've just killed. They've killed. They've backfired completely and totally. They've just totally backfired. Everything that you thought, take it worst case, it's turned out to be worse than that. They have not worked. From Gaza to Iran, those bitter hatreds have delivered nothing but misery, suffering, failure, and death. They've served not to weaken Israel, but to annihilate the very forces that did the most to foment this hatred. And it's really, everybody that's tried it has become irrelevant. Meanwhile, we've seen those nations that set aside their differences, reached across ancient divides, and pursued engagement are now among the most successful in the region. They're getting along with Israel, and they're doing great. And I can tell you the 4 nations that joined the Abraham Accords early on, and you'd all be doing me a favor, and I'm going to be saying this in a little while to some other friends, would love you all to, is this right, Jared? Join up in the Abraham Accords. We have to join up and get together. You can have that whole thing filled out. We had a very weak administration, worst president in the history of our country by far. And Barack Obama was not far behind, by the way. And they did nothing with this incredible document, the Abraham Accords, but now you can fill them up. Now you have peace, you have people that really like Israel. I'll tell you what, and they like Israel a lot more today than they did even 5 weeks ago. You've made a lot of, you've come back. You've come back strong, because it was getting to be a little nasty out there in the world, and ultimately the world wins. You can't beat the world always. I would say to Bibi, it's now time, and he understood it better than anybody, because ultimately, you know, the world's a very big place. And I've said a lot. I said, this piece of land is very small. It's unbelievable what you've done with that tiny. You look at a map even of just not the world, the Middle East, and you have this little dot. And think of what you've done. It's incredible. It's incredible. But the world is loving Israel again. And I said to him, you know, the world is big and it's strong. And Ron, ultimately, the world wins. And we don't have to worry about that now. But there was getting to be a period of time over the last few months, you know, the world wanted peace and Israel wanted peace. Everybody did. Everybody did. And what a victory it's been, right? What a victory it's been. If you would have gone on for 3-4 more years, keep fighting, it was getting bad. It was getting heated. The timing of this is brilliant. And I said, Bibi, you're going to be remembered for this far more than if you kept this thing going, kill. It would be it would not be the same. And I just want to congratulate.
All right, so that's President Trump as he spoke earlier in front of the Israeli parliament. President Trump has actually landed and is en route to the peace summit there in Egypt. You saw it there on the bottom of your screen as he landed, get off Air Force One. So we want to go now to Raleigh, to the executive mansion. Where happening right now, Governor Josh Stein is speaking. You see him there live. He is with the Department of Health and Human Services Secretary. Announcing a total amount of medical debt relieved through the state's medical debt relief program. Let's take a listen into what Governor Stein is saying right now.
I'll say it one more time for the folks in the back. More than $6.5 million in medical debt for nearly 1 out of every 4 North Carolinians. An average amount of about $2,600 erased. So many credit reports wiped clean. This is life-changing news for so many families. Medical debt is a tremendous burden that keeps families from financial security and emotional and physical well-being. For many people, the debt service serves as an anvil holding them back from opportunity and a better life, from getting a mortgage or a small business loan. People often feel shame when they don't pay their debts, even when it is impossible for them to afford them. Unlike most other forms of debt, medical debt is not a choice. No one chooses to have a heart attack or get diagnosed with a chronic condition. You just have to deal with it. Today's announcement will free people from the financial stress so that they can focus on getting healthy. There are many people to thank for today's news. Chief among them is former Governor Roy Cooper. I want to thank Governor Cooper for caring about folks' financial stress and for his creative leadership. Last year, Governor Cooper and former DHHS Secretary Cody Kinsley put gears into motion by working to enroll every eligible hospital in North Carolina into this state's medical debt relief program. It was a first-of-its-kind initiative that leveraged federal health care money to incentivize hospitals to erase people's medical debt. Most of the debt had been on the books for years. It only served to deprive people who had no way of paying it back of a brighter financial future. If they could have paid it, they would have paid it. So we used an existing federal program that benefits hospitals to reward them for relieving this debt. Again, debt that they were not going to collect anyway. In addition to DHHS, the partnership could not have happened without the willingness of our state's hospitals to help their patients. So I want to say a loud thank you to North Carolina's hospitals and to the North Carolina Healthcare Association. I also want to acknowledge and appreciate Undo Medical Debt, the nonprofit organization that has been working with the hospitals and patients to make this debt relief happen. This medical debt relief program is a true win-win for the patients, for the hospitals, and for our state's economy. I'll let the other speakers say a little bit more about the announcement, but today I want to celebrate this good news and all the folks who worked so hard to make it happen, and I want to give a special thank you to North Carolina's Medicaid team. They've been working their tails off through incredibly challenging time put on their shoulders by the federal government especially, but also our state legislature. I hope that today is a reminder of how important the work that you all do at North Carolina Medicaid for the good of the people of this state. The program blew past the impact we anticipated when we got started by billions of dollars. It's an example of innovation and collaboration to improve the health and economic well-being of the people of North Carolina. That's exactly what people want out of their government. We can do it again. That is why I am calling on the Senate and the House to put their non-Medicaid disputes to the side and come back to the table to fully fund Medicaid in North Carolina. The two chambers agree that Medicaid needs more money to operate. The two chambers even agree on how much more money is needed to operate. The two chambers agree that the cuts to Medicaid provider rates are hurting people, especially in our rural areas. The General Assembly needs to send me a clean Medicaid bill when they come back to town in a week and a half, and I will sign it. In Washington, D.C., our leaders from both parties need to come together to extend the ACA subsidies and stop people's health insurance premiums from skyrocketing, 60% on average. We have so much work to do to improve people's health and financial well-being, but this announcement serves as a reminder of how much we can achieve when we work together. You'll hear stories from Jose and Dave about how this debt relief is benefiting North Carolinians. People like Michael and Deanna, who both faced life-changing medical diagnoses and then life-changing debt just from trying to get treatment to stay healthy and alive. People who now have a chance to get their health and their financial lives back on track. So let's keep this momentum going. Let's keep putting money back in people's pockets, not leaving them high and dry. Let's keep investing in people's health. I'll now bring forward Dev Sangvi, Secretary of DHHS. Dev.
Good morning, and thank you, Governor Stein, for that kind introduction. It's truly an honor as we share this announcement that is impacting millions of North Carolinians, giving them a fresh start from the burden of medical debt. We're so proud to announce, as you've heard, $6.5 billion, that's billion with a B, in medical debt has already been relieved, and that number continues to grow. I'm grateful to our team from NCDHHS for their commitment and work on this program over the last year. I always take an opportunity to ask those from DHHS to please raise your hand, because I think it's important that we recognize the great work you've done. So if you're with the agency, quickly, please raise your hands. Thank you very much for the work that you're doing. We would not be here celebrating this milestone without each and every one of you. I would also like to acknowledge and thank former Secretary of Health and Human Services, Cody Kinsley, who is here with us today as well. Cody, thanks for all the work that you have done. As you've heard, his vision, along with Governor Cooper, helped make this life-changing program a reality. The relief of medical debt is not just financial relief. It is a step toward better health and peace of mind. Medical debt doesn't just sit on a balance sheet. It creates a cycle of stress, delayed care, and worsening health, and we are now breaking that cycle. At DHHS, one of our key priorities is to focus on whole person well-being by addressing the complex non-medical factors that impact health, and personal finances is certainly one of those. Unlike most other debt, as we've heard from the governor, medical debt is rarely voluntary. People do not choose to get sick or injured. It often rises unexpectedly and can exceed a person's ability to pay, damaging credit, limiting access to housing and jobs, and causing people to delay needed care. And all of this is occurring when oftentimes in healthcare you don't know what you're buying, you don't know what it costs, and you get saddled with the debt. So when we help individuals and families overcome these barriers to care and treatment, we not only make our state healthier, but we also allow North Carolinians to thrive. As a physician, I've seen this firsthand, how debt can get in the way of individuals and families getting the care they need. Countless times I've worked with patients who have foregone care because they were worried that they would be asked to pay their debt if they went to the hospital. While this debt can be negligible for the hospital, often uncollectible and more costly to manage than it's worth, it represents a heavy burden on the individual. What's important to note about this program, this is not a one-time fix. It is a sustainable model that will continue to reduce debt burden and improve access to care in the years ahead. This initiative has put into place policies and practices to prevent low and middle income North Carolinians from incurring health-related debt in the future. I want to thank all of the eligible hospitals who signed on to this effort. I'm particularly proud to say that I was CEO of one of these hospitals prior to becoming secretary. We are unified in our commitment to help the people we serve. And this speaks volumes about what we can do when stakeholders come together. This is how we build a healthier North Carolina, through creativity, compassion, collaboration, and consensus. I'll now welcome Jose Penabad, Vice Chair of Undue Medical Debt, who has been an incredible collaborator and leader in the implementation of North Carolina's medical debt relief program. Jose?
Good morning, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Jose Penabad, Vice Chair of Undue Medical Debt, and also a proud resident of the great state of North Carolina. So I sincerely want to thank everyone in this room who helped make this happen, particularly Governor Stein and Secretary Sangbhai, for their leadership in helping address the issue of medical debt in North Carolina, and for allowing us to partner with you all in forgiving $6.5 billion of medical debt for 2.5 million of our neighbors. Those are the people we're helping here today. Undue will begin its notification process this week. We expect to be sending over 255,000 letters to people this week to notify them that their debt has been relieved. I am very grateful to be here today. It's not every day that the work that you do touches the lives of millions of people. So I want to thank the team at Undue Medical Debt for allowing me this honor to represent our charity and for their tireless effort to end medical debt for all Americans. Our charity's mission is straightforward. We want to end the scourge of medical debt in America with the goal of putting our charity out of business. We firmly believe that when communities can access the medical care they need, when they need it, and without fear of financial ruin, our communities are stronger, they're healthier, and they're happier. Medical debt, as both Governor Stein and Secretary Sangbhai have said, is a terrible name to call this thing. The word debt in our society suggests that someone had a real choice in the matter, as they do with their other financial debt. It's not like someone woke up on a Saturday and said they want to end up in the ER with a $20,000 bill for a good time. This does not happen. This is not a choice. If you are unfortunate enough to find yourself burdened with this medical debt, it is because a number of already horrible things have happened to you that day that culminates in insult and literal injury when you find that you can't pay this debt. Nearly 1 in 3 Americans per KFF are burdened with medical debt. We all know someone who has been impacted by this, or you know of someone who has known someone impacted by this. It's easy to see why this number is so large. 50% of American adults say that they do not have $500 for an emergency, yet in North Carolina, a single adult's deductible for healthcare insurance is $2,200. You can quickly see how an unexpected medical event can snowball into a financial disaster for someone who can't afford $500 in an emergency event. Undue works with over 300 providers nationwide, including more than 25 state and city governments. But as a resident, I am particularly proud to highlight that North Carolina's approach is completely unique because it facilitates in the short term debt relief for families today while incentivizing long-term policy changes that will end the cycle of medical debt by attacking it at its root cause, ending it before it even starts, so that these unpayable medical debts don't infect our communities with this sickness that is rotting in us today. And it's this combination of short and long-term fixes that our charity appreciates the most about North Carolina's approach. Make no mistake, debt relief provides North Carolina families with welcome relief and hope for the future, but it is no silver bullet. And as much as I am proud of the work we do and to get to stand in front of all of you today, in front of my wife and my daughter, I really hate to say that we're here helping 2.5 million people who needed help from medical debt. Undue is committed to upstream policy fixes to solve medical debt at its root so that our children and our neighbors' children never need to know the pain and suffering of this type of event. And finally, despite the negative headlines and the sometimes hopelessness with which people discuss the issue of medical debt, North Carolina set a tremendous, shining, bright, positive light to show that states can do active things to protect their residents and can advance a positive solution that is done by multiple groups of providers, by the states, by the people involved in the care of our neighbors, and cross parties and finding a real solution. I am so proud to be here today. I want to thank everyone for allowing me to be here, and I believe our work is just getting started. And with that, I'd like to hand it over for Dave for a story about our work. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dave Almeida with Blood Cancer United. At Blood Cancer United, we are on a mission to cure blood cancer and improve the quality of life of all patients and their families. And I'm joined this morning by Emily Blust, who serves as the Executive Director of Blood Cancer United here in North Carolina. I'll start this morning by saying thank you to Governor Stein and to Secretary Sanjay for their leadership in bringing much needed relief to North Carolinians with medical debt. And I would be very remiss if I didn't also take a moment to say thank you again to Governor Cooper and to former Secretary Kinsley for the innovation and the creativity they brought to addressing this very serious issue. Medical debt doesn't just drain bank accounts, it drains hope. People tell us they feel trapped in medical debt and see no way out. They tell us that they have had to forego medical treatment because of medical debt, and they tell us that they spend nights worrying about whether to pay the medical bill or the rent because they can't afford to do both. Behind every medical bill is a story. It's a story of Michael from my area, who once told me that he became so concerned about the debt he was accumulating for his blood cancer treatment that he felt he could not, in good conscience, impose that burden on his family. So he told me that if things got worse, he was willing to forego treatment, even at the risk of his life. It's the story of a blood cancer patient in Charlotte who had a lapse in insurance coverage and incurred more than $30,000 in medical debt. Things were so bad at one point in time that she decided to avoid getting her treatment report cleaned once a month in order to save money. And then it's the story of the blood cancer patient who accumulated more than $200,000 in medical debt, which is already in collections. Blood cancer patients and survivors, North Carolina's blood cancer patients and survivors, North Carolina's medical debt relief program is a welcome off-ramp. It restores hope. It provides peace of mind. It means no more GoFundMe campaigns, no more personal fundraisers, no more sales on Facebook Marketplace, and most importantly, it means no more calls from the debt collector demanding payment. Thank you again to Governor Stein, Secretary Sanjay, Governor Cooper, and Secretary Kinsley. Blood Cancer United applauds your efforts, and we stand committed to working with you to further this partnership. Thank you.
Alrighty, so that concludes our program. Thank you everybody for coming. I'm gonna ask everyone to stay seated while I get the press to another room. You can follow Sammy, who's right here. We have refreshments out in the foyer area, and then we'll do a couple photos, and Madison will get folks lined up for photos.
All right, so that is a press conference there inside the executive mansion in Raleigh as Governor Stein and other leaders announce medical debt erased, over $6 billion for more than 2 million people. A big announcement there. Again, medical debt relief was the crux of this press conference, and the debt that is erased. Before we head to break, I just want to mention we have President Trump. Yeah, here we go. I don't know if he's set to say anything at this moment. Carlene is taking a listen in, but he just arrived in Egypt within the last 30 minutes or so. There is Secretary Marco Rubio. He's there with world leaders, President Trump at this peace summit. Let's take a listen in. Is he saying anything? Can you hear anything audibly? Let's take a listen in.
We've seen before, and we had tremendous stop, as you know, in Israel, and now we're in a country where a friend of mine is a very powerful leader, And my friend is right here, the president, also the general, you know. Sometimes I call him, usually I call him the general because he's both, and he's good at both. And they've done a fantastic job. And they have very little crime, you know, because they don't play games, that's why. They don't play games like we do in the United States with governors that have no idea what they're doing. But they don't have crime. I ask about crime and they almost don't even know what I'm talking about. So it's a great tribute to this man. He's done a fantastic job in bringing this country together, and the United States is with him all the way. Thank you. Okay, all the way, and it's an honor to be with you.
Sir, what will Egypt's role play in the peace process here?
He played a very important role, and they had a very important role with Hamas. In fact, the general was right here, was very instrumental because Hamas respects this country and they respect the leadership of Egypt. So you played a very important role. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you.
President Trump, in Israel just now, you were talking about a possible Iran peace deal. You said, we are ready when you are.
Yeah.
Is that the ultimate goal with today's signing, to get enough?
Not Iran, but I think Iran will come along. They've been battered and bruised, and you know they need some help. They have big sanctions, as you know, tremendous sanctions. I'd love to take the sanctions off when they're ready to talk, but they can't really survive with those sanctions. Those sanctions are very tough. But at some point, they're going to say, we want the sanctions off. We're going to end up with peace. I think Iran is going to be fine. I know so many Iranian people. They're great people. They're smart, great people. Engineers, lawyers. I mean, they're academics. But they took a big hit. And frankly, if we didn't hit them with the nuclear, I don't think you would have been able to have this incredible this deal, this once-in-a-lifetime deal. Nobody's ever seen anything like what's happening today. And countries have all come together, all different countries. Some liked each other, some didn't, most didn't. And they've all come together. Every country has come together. And by the way, Iran did put out a statement, you know, that they support this deal.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCMT Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right there is President Donald Trump live, speaking with the media and with other leaders there in Egypt. We saw Secretary Marco Rubio to his right. We will continue to keep an eye on what's unfolding.